From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
How is this all possible? Think of it as a Google search, except instead of searching only what people make public, we're also looking at everything they don't. Emails, chats, SMS, whatever. Yeah, but which people? The whole kingdom's Snow White.
The NSA is really tracking every cell phone in the world.
Most Americans don't want freedom. They want security.
Except people, they don't even know they've made that bargain.
The much-anticipated film Snowden, about one of the most wanted men in the world, hits theaters this Friday. Today, we spend the hour with its director, Academy Award-winning filmmaker Oliver Stone, and the actor who plays Snowden, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. The film's release comes amidst a stepped-up campaign for President Obama to pardon Snowden before he leaves office in January.
If not for these disclosures, if not for these revelations, we would be worse off. Yes, there are laws on the books that say one thing, but perhaps this is why the pardon power exists, for the exceptions, for the things that may seem unlawful in letters on a page, but when we look at them morally, when we look at them ethically, and when we look at the results, it seems obvious that these were necessary things, these were vital things.
And we'll speak with WikiLeaks editor Sarah Harrison. In 2013, she spent 4 months with Snowden in the Russian airport.
Through his work then at the NSA and working as a contractor for the intelligence agency, he was able to understand that actually this isn't necessarily they're not actually necessarily doing the right thing and telling the public the truth. And so although his same motives have always been the same, to serve his country and to uphold the Constitution, the method with which this was appropriate to actually act out became a very different one. And in this case, it became having to explain to the American public what was actually being done to them.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Imprisoned Army whistleblower Chelsea Manning's announced she's ending her hunger strike after the Army has agreed to provide her adequate medical treatment, including gender-affirming surgery. Manning is serving a 35-year sentence in the disciplinary barracks in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, after being convicted of passing hundreds of thousands of documents to WikiLeaks. She's been subjected to long stretches of solitary confinement and denied medical treatment related to her gender identity. On Tuesday, Chelsea said in a statement, quote, "I am unendingly relieved that the military is finally doing the right thing. I applaud them for that. This is all that I wanted, for them to let me be me. I hope this sets a precedent for the thousands of trans people behind me, hoping they will be given the treatment they need," Chelsea Manning said. In news from the campaign trail, New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has launched an investigation into the Donald J. Trump Foundation. This comes after a series of investigations by the Associated Press and the Washington Post have sparked questions about Trump's family charity. The Post revealed that Donald Trump has not given any of his own money to the charity since 2008. Instead, the charity's simply been receiving and donating other people's money while creating the illusion Trump has been giving himself. In one case, Trump used $20,000 of the foundation money to buy a 6-foot-tall painting of himself. The Washington Post also revealed Trump has used the foundation to make political contributions, including giving money to a campaign group for Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who had threatened to investigate Trump University. Using foundation money for these types of political purposes is illegal. Meanwhile, a Newsweek investigation is raising questions about the Trump Organization and potential conflicts of interest that would arise if Trump became president. The investigation reveals the Trump Organization is a vast financial network that stretches from New York City to India, Ukraine, China, Brazil, Argentina, Turkey, and Russia, where the organization is connected to Russian mining, banking, and real estate billionaire Vladimir Putin, who himself is closely tied to the Russian government. Trump's frequent praise of Russian President Vladimir Putin has already sparked concern among national security experts about U.S. foreign policy under a possible Trump presidency. The Newsweek investigation concludes, quote, if Donald Trump wins this election and his company is not immediately shut down or forever severed from the Trump family, the foreign policy of the United States of America could well be for sale, unquote. This comes as a new trove of hacked emails has been released on the website dcleaks.com. The leak includes an email from former Secretary of State General Colin Powell sent on June 17th of this year, in which he calls Donald Trump a, quote, national disgrace and a, quote, international pariah. In North Dakota, more than 20 people were arrested Tuesday, blocking construction of the $3.8 billion Dakota Access Pipeline, which has faced months of resistance from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and members of hundreds of other tribes from across the United States, Canada, and Latin America. Tuesday's actions took place near New Salem, which is about 70 miles northwest of the main protest camps. Video shows police in full riot gear carrying assault rifles at the site of the protest. Among those arrested were 2 journalists with the outlet Unicorn Riot. Construction was halted for hours as 2 people locked themselves to heavy machinery.
We're here locking down to this pipeline machinery and stopping construction in this site for today and letting the world know that pipeline construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline is still continuing, contrary to what a lot of folks thought after last Friday's intervention by the Obama administration, making it seem like they were going to stop the pipeline. Pipeline continues to be built.
The arrests come only days after the Obama administration intervened in the pipeline battle, indefinitely halting construction under the Missouri River and asking Dakota Access to voluntarily cease construction on a 40-mile stretch of land spanning the river, although construction on the vast majority of the 1,172-mile pipeline continues. Meanwhile, the Dakota Access Pipeline Company says it's removed 27 pieces of equipment from another construction site on Tuesday. The arrest came as thousands of people rallied across dozens of U.S. and international cities Tuesday. Opposition to the Dakota Access Pipeline is what they were expressing. On Tuesday, hundreds rallied in Oakland, Boston, London, Philadelphia, and Toronto, where protesters blocked major downtown streets. In Washington, D.C., thousands protested the project. This is Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
The pipeline company is refusing to halt its construction while a new review takes place. In absence of the pipeline company's compliance, further administration action is needed. That is why I am calling on President Obama today to ensure that this pipeline gets a full environmental and cultural impact analysis. So today we stand united in saying, stop the pipeline, respect Native American rights, and let us move forward to transform our energy system away from fossil fuels.
The United States and Israel have agreed upon a new military aid package of $38 billion over 10 years. It's the largest military funding package the U.S. has ever offered to any nation. The U.S. already gives Israel more than $3 billion in military funding every year. This figure will now increase to an average of $3.8 billion a year. In Syria, a tenuous ceasefire brokered between the U.S. and Russia appears to be holding. Although some violations have been reported, the ceasefire, however, has opened up a rift between Secretary of State John Kerry and the Pentagon, which is pushing back on Kerry's plan to share information with Russia in the campaign against ISIS in Syria. Meanwhile, UN Human Rights Commissioner Zeid Ra'ad al-Hussein slammed Syrian President Bashar al-Assad for a wide range of human rights abuses on Tuesday.
This is a state led by a medical doctor, and yet is believed to have gassed its own people has attacked hospitals and bombed civilian neighborhoods with indiscriminate explosive weapons, and maintains tens of thousands of detainees in inhuman conditions. Words cannot convey how profoundly I condemn this situation. The government, which is responsible for some of the gravest violations on record in the history of this Council, has regularly sent note verbals to my office reporting abuses by armed groups, but it offers no possibility whatsoever for independent scrutiny.
In financial news, new census data shows the median household income rose over 5% in 2015. It's the first major increase of household income since the recession began in 2007. The data shows average income for the poorest 20% of Americans increased for the first time in 4 years. This comes after a number of cities and states passed minimum wage hikes. However, economic inequality remains deeply entrenched. The poorest 10% of Americans are relatively poorer today than they were in 1989. German pharmaceutical firm Bayer is expected to announce a takeover of agribusiness giant Monsanto today. Bayer has been trying to take over Monsanto for months, but Monsanto has repeatedly rejected past offers. A merger between the firms would create the largest supplier of seeds and agricultural chemicals in the world. Meanwhile, a new analysis by the Wall Street Journal shows the pharmaceutical giant Mylan, which has come under fire for hiking the cost of the life-saving allergy shot EpiPen by 400% in less than a decade, has the second highest executive pay in the entire U.S. pharmaceutical industry. In the last 5 years, Mylan has paid its top 5 executives nearly $300 million. That's second only to the pharmaceutical company Regeneron, which over 5 years paid its top 5 executives more than $500 million. In Bangladesh, the death toll from a fire at a packaging factory has risen to 31. The fire began after a boiler explosion on Saturday. The company, Tampaco Foils, packages items for multinational companies, including Nestle and British American Tobacco. This is the Inspector General of the Bangladesh Police speaking right after the disaster.
Till now, we have found bodies of 21 people who died in the fire. What I have seen here is an industry with bad safety provisions. Whether they had proper permission or not, proper documents, we will have to look into it.
And in New York City, police are looking for a man who lit a Muslim woman on fire as she was shopping in Manhattan wearing traditional religious clothing. On Saturday, the Scottish tourist was standing on Fifth Avenue when she realized her shirt was on fire. A man was standing next to her with a lighter in his hand. Police say the incident may have been a hate crime. It came only days before Eid al-Adha, one of the holiest days for Muslims. In response, Linda Sarsour, co-founder of the Muslim Democratic Club of New York, wrote, quote, "As a Muslim woman, not only is wearing my religious headscarf in public an act of faith, but it has become an act of courage," unquote. The United States has seen a surge of attacks against Muslim Americans over the last year. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez. Welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. Today, we spend the hour with Academy Award-winning filmmaker Oliver Stone, director of the much-anticipated film Snowden that hits theaters this Friday.
Best I can tell, you've been walking around with 2 broken legs for weeks.
When do I go back?
You ever again land on those legs of yours, those bones will turn to powder. Plenty other ways to serve your country.
You wanted to be special forces?
Yes, sir.
Why do you want to join the CIA?
I'd like to help my country make a difference in the world.
The average test time is 5 hours.
I'm done, sir.
It's been 40 minutes.
38 minutes. What should I do now?
Whatever you want.
The deputy director of the NSA offered me a new position.
Can you tell me anything about it?
You know I can't.
Find the terrorist in the internet haystack. You're making people very happy.
Thank you.
You ready for a little action?
Oh, this looks juicy.
How is this all possible?
Think of it as a Google search, except instead of searching only what people make public, we're also looking at everything they don't. Emails, chats, SMS, whatever.
Yeah, but which people?
The whole kingdom, Snow White.
The NSA is really tracking every cell phone in the world.
Most Americans don't want freedom. They want security.
Except people, they don't even know they've made that bargain.
Are they watching us?
There's something going on inside the government that's really wrong, and I can't ignore it. I just want to get this data to the world. Hey. I feel like I'm made to do this, and if I don't do it, then I don't know anybody else that can. This is everything I have. They're gonna figure out what I've done.
Did you access an unauthorized program?
The government knows that we have these documents now.
You're looking at a possible death sentence.
I can't turn back from this. Watch yourself.
We are running out of time.
They're gonna come for me. They're gonna come for all of you too.
That's the trailer to the new film Snowden, directed by Oliver Stone, about NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden, who exposed sweeping surveillance programs by U.S. intelligence agencies and became one of the most wanted men in the world. The film recreates what transpired in a Hong Kong hotel room over 8 days in June 2013, when Snowden first met with now Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Laura Poitras and Glenn Greenwald and Guardian reporter Ewan MacAskill to leak a trove of secret documents about how the United States had built a massive surveillance apparatus to spy on Americans and people across the globe. It also tells the story of Snowden's longtime relationship with his partner, Lindsay Mills.
Through flashbacks, the film chronicles Snowden's career in national security as a staffer and contractor with the CIA and NSA, and shows his eventual realization of the extent of the U.S. mass surveillance program, as illustrated in this scene with an NSA hacker whom he later befriends.
What I will be providing you and the fine gentleman of the Secret Service is a list of every threat made about the president since February 3rd, and a profile of every threat maker.
And these are, like, existing targets?
Like 99% are going to come from the bulk collection program, so upstream muscular tempora prism.
Prism?
You got a little Snow White in you. Which makes me feel like the witch bringing you a poison apple. Here. Exhibit A. Oakland resident Justin Pinsky posted on a message board. Romania has a storied history of executing their leaders. Couldn't they do us a solid and take out Bush? Oh, this looks juicy. This is from a G-chat.
With the biggest python you've ever seen.
How is this all possible? Keyword selectors. Attack, take out, Bush. So think of it as a Google search, except instead of searching only what people make public, we're also looking at everything they don't. So emails, chats, SMS, whatever.
Yeah, but which people?
The whole kingdom, Snow White.
That's a clip from the new film Snowden. The film's release comes amidst a stepped-up campaign for President Obama to pardon Edward Snowden before he leaves office in January. Snowden is charged with theft of state secrets and is accused of violating the Espionage Act. He faces at least 30 years in prison, but argues his disclosure of mass surveillance by the U.S. and British intelligence agencies was not only morally right, but left citizens better off. The ACLU is coordinating the campaign with Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and other groups. Full-page ads are running today in Politico and The Washington Post. Well, for more, we're joined right now by the director of Snowden. Oliver Stone is a 3-time Academy Award-winning director and screenwriter. He's made nearly 24 acclaimed Hollywood films, including Platoon, Wall Street, Salvador, Born on the 4th of July, JFK, Nixon W, South of the Border, and Wall Street. Money Never Sleeps. He joins us in studio today, along with the star of his latest film, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who stars in Oliver Stone's film as the character Edward Snowden. Gordon-Levitt's an actor and filmmaker known for his roles in Third Rock from the Sun, 500 Days of Summer, Inception, and other films. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Congratulations, Oliver. You have just released this film. Tonight, in 800 theaters across the country, you will not only show the film, but project a conversation with Ed Snowden, who is in political exile in Russia.
That's correct. Yes, tonight.
Talk about why you chose this as the subject of your latest film.
Well, as you know, Amy, it's an important story. When it broke, it was very hot, and I didn't want anything to do with it because I just don't think movies can chase the news. We're always about a year or two behind, you know, things change in a case like this. But I went over to Moscow. His lawyer invited me, Anatoly Kucherina, and I met with Ed, and he was wary of a movie, and I was wary of the whole situation. I went back 2 more times, and by the 3rd visit in June of 2015, we agreed to go ahead and do as realistic a version as possible of his life.
And the decision to make a feature film, obviously Laura Poitras's film Citizen 4 just won the Academy won the Academy Award. Your decision to make a feature film and concentrate much more on the story of his journey.
Yes, one's a documentary, a fine film, and this is a drama, and it's 2 different genres. I mean, sometimes they're compared, but I think falsely. No, our goal was to humanize the man, to bring you behind the eyes, behind the feeling of his life, what he was about, why he did it. Remember, he was a conservative young man. He joined the military at a young age. He wanted to go to Iraq at the most dangerous time to fight that war. He couldn't serve because he was frail, frankly, physically, and he ended up joining the CIA instead. He was a grandfather were both in the service. So it's an interesting, remember my film Born on the 4th of July, where Ron Kovic turns. You see an interesting turn of personality, and through his relationship partly with Lindsay Mills.
We're going to go to break, then come back. Oliver Stone and Joseph Gordon-Levitt are our guests. Sarah Harrison will be joining us later in the show, the investigative editor for WikiLeaks, who accompanied Edward Snowden on his flight from Hong Kong to Moscow and ended up spending 4 months in the Russian airport with him. This is Democracy Now! Snowden is being released this week. Well, that's the film, not the man. Stay with us.
Very good.
Stories start to leak. They color your name. While up above, cloud turns to rain. You can feel the touch of a hand you know well. It's a very long way from Maryland. Some say you're a patriot. Some call you a spy. An American hero or a traitor that deserves to die. In the heart of the free world, in the home of the brave, you gave up everything. Bring down the veil. There's no safe place to go. Now you've let that whistle blow. Show exactly what is going on. Show exactly who is looking on.
The Veil by Peter Gabriel, who composed this song for the new film Snowden. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
Well, we're speaking with the director of Snowden, Oliver Stone. Let's go to another clip from the film Snowden.
Hey, Forrester, where'd you study, Stone?
Mostly I'm self-taught. You can tell me if you're busy, but is that a Cray 1?
Well, yes. Yes, it is. The first supercomputer. You can get all of this on a cell phone now.
Yeah. So you're an engineer?
Am I an engineer? Instructor and counselor, too. I'm supposed to keep an eye on you CTs. Make sure you don't buckle under the pressure. Turn to drugs and booze.
Well, you won't have that problem with me. I don't drink or do drugs.
What is your sin of choice?
Computers.
Well, then, Snowden, you've come to the right little whorehouse.
Well, we're joined by the director of Snowden, Oliver Stone, and the actor Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who played Snowden, who stars in the film as the main character. I'd like to ask you about, one, the times you were able to meet with Ed Snowden to get your sense of the character, and what most surprised you about the man you were portraying.
Sure. Well, as Oliver said, he and his co-writer, Kieran Fitzgerald, took a number of trips to Moscow to meet with Mr. Snowden, and he was really generous with his time and gave a lot of input on the script. And then they brought me once. I had a chance to sit with him for about 4 hours, and it was me and him, as well as his longtime girlfriend, Lindsay Mills, who's played in the movie by Shailene Woodley. And the thing is, he's always trying to take the attention off himself personally and put the attention on the issues that he's trying to bring up. And I think that's proper. I admire him for it. However, because I'm an actor and I was getting ready to play him in a movie, I was focused on him personally, on the little nuances that you can pick up when you shake someone's hand, or you see how they sit or stand or walk or talk or eat. Even we ate lunch together, and those little details are really valuable for me.
You have an interesting background, especially for our viewers and listeners. Your parents met at the Pacifica station, KPFK, in Los Angeles.
That's right. Yeah, my dad was the news editor at KPFK in the early '70s, and my mom was working there too, and that is where they met.
Your mom ran for Congress on the Peace and Freedom
ticket, right.
And your grandfather was a blacklisted director.
That's right. My mom's dad, his name was Michael Gordon. And he had just directed a movie called Cyrano de Bergerac, which is a very, lauded movie. The actor, Jose Ferrer, had just won the Oscar. And he had been to, some meetings, which were basically, people gathering at homes and generally talking about, the kind of things that you talk about on this program, rights for workers, poverty around the world, things like that. But at that time, the U.S. government, mostly led by Senator McCarthy, considered that un-American, and a lot of people were put on a list called the blacklist and not allowed to work. So, my mom's family, they actually had to move because my grandpa couldn't work. And
issues that are un-American, that considered by so many others as patriotic. I think you could sort of talk about Edward Snowden the same way. I want to turn to another clip from the new film Snowden, where the character you play, Joe, Edward Snowden, reveals the extent of data collection worldwide.
What is this? Okay, so this is data collection for the month of March. Worldwide, emails and Skype calls. So France, 70 million, Germany, 500 million, Brazil, 2 billion. Inside the U.S., 3.1 billion emails and calls. It's not including any of the telecom company data.
Okay, so what's the collection of Russia?
Russia is 1.5 billion.
Wait, so we're collecting twice as much in the U.S. as we are in Russia?
Yeah, I figured it was a lot, but it's out of hand, man.
Have you shown this to anyone else?
No, you guys are the first.
Yeah, I'd be careful about that. It could seem like you're rocking the boat.
Yeah, you're right. I just, I needed to know if I was the only one that thought this was crazy.
What the fuck's going on?
Hey, Trev.
What are you doing in here?
It's nothing. I was just showing them this one slide.
My bad, Trev. I made a bet with Ed about which country we're collecting the most signals from.
Yeah, I ain't head out. I'll see you guys.
You're going down next time, man.
Okay.
I don't want anyone unauthorized in here again, especially not with Heartbeat.
You're right. Won't happen again.
That's a clip from Snowden where Edward Snowden is talking about to the other members of the team the extent of the surveillance that he has managed to pull together because he developed a program called Heartbeat. Right?
That's correct.
And that was an interesting aspect of your film because, in essence, the Heartbeat program that he created, which was an index of the surveillance programs, made it easier when he finally decided to download the material to be able to do it in a more efficient manner.
Actually, very few people know that, and some technical people who know a lot about the case have pointed that out. It's a revelation. Of course, the NSA has 150 programs. Their names are insane, but in there, it hasn't come out yet. I think you'll find Heartbeat. Of course, they'll cover it up when they release it, or they'll do something, but it was planned to offense and defense. The last thing that Ed did was to work on offensive capabilities in cyber warfare out of Hawaii, in his second position there with Booz Allen. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And anyway, he learned a lot. He combined the offense and that's one of his major points, is why are we waging offensive warfare when we can't secure our homeland without defensive capabilities?
Talk about the process of making the film and the elaborate security protocols that you went through, using code words, handwritten notes so they can't be picked up on the internet.
Yeah. I'm going to answer that. I just want to point out one more little thing. It's if Michael Hayden was the head of the NSA at 9/11, and they failed to do their job. That's very important. That Americans don't sometimes realize the extent of that failure, that he had a good information that led to 2 of the hijackers who were in San Diego. That was through a safe house they owned. I mean, they didn't own it. They had spied on it for a long time. It was in Sana'a in Yemen. So, in other words, they haven't really utilized those tools for defense. As to our protocols, we were suspicious that there would be interferences, but I can't say that it happened. I don't know. We did go offline and off the grid as much as possible. Meetings in person. We checked the phones, debugged the computers. We really tried to be wise about it. Whenever a script had to go out, we cut it up into sections and put it on a device and encrypt it and send it off to whoever was reading it in the world.
And you didn't film here. You filmed in Germany?
We started in Germany. We built most of America out of Germany. And then we came here for 1 week only to Washington, D.C. And Joe and Shailene walked right in front of the White House with Mr. Obama. We came in and out once or twice. We had to suspend filming. There was a blackout that day. And we also moved on to Hawaii and shot near that base. We shot actually in the home, close to the home that Ed had in Hawaii next to that golf course. And then we moved to Hong Kong and on back to Germany and then to Moscow.
I'd like to ask Joe about this issue of this is not only a tale of international espionage and intrigue, it's also a love story. And the love story is not only crucial to holding the audience, but also to the development of the character that you portray, Edward Snowden. Can you talk about that as well?
Sure. Well, that's just the thing, is the real-life story of Edward Snowden's life, these 9 years between 2004 and 2013, which is really the bulk of the film. The real-life story is the perfect material for a drama, because a drama is always focused on a character who changes. And, as Oliver pointed out, Snowden enlisted in the U.S. Army in 2004. He's the kind of guy that wants to go fight for his country, and he's a certain kind of patriot. And I almost think he kind of evolves into a new kind of patriotism, one kind where you just believe that everything your country does is right no matter what, and you don't ask any questions. And then a new kind where you do ask those questions and view that questioning as patriotic. So a big part of that development from one kind of patriotism to another is due to his girlfriend, Lindsay Mills, who was brought up in a really different environment than he was, whereas, Ed's father and grandfather were in the service, as Oliver mentioned. Lindsay came from a very different upbringing.
Well, let's go to a clip from the film which features Snowden and his girlfriend, Lindsay, as they walk through a protest in Washington, D.C. against the Iraq War.
Excuse me, ma'am. Would you like to sign?
I actually just signed.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Too much independent spirit for you?
No, I just don't really like bashing my country.
It's my country, too. And right now it has blood on its hands.
Sorry, I have friends who are over there right now.
I'm not talking about the troops. I'm talking about the morons sending them to war.
You mean our commander-in-chief?
Yeah, whatever you want to call him, he's still wrong.
How do you know he's wrong? You're just lashing out.
No, I'm not lashing out. I'm questioning our government. That's what we do in this country. That is the principle that we are founded on.
Okay, but how about questioning the liberal media? I mean, you're just buying into what one side is saying.
Maybe I am, because my side is right.
See, that's funny, because my side's right.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah.
Huh. Why does it smart conservatives always make me so mad?
Probably because you don't like hearing the truth.
You are a very frustrating individual. You know that? How am I going to make you see?
I can see just fine. Thank you.
That's Edward Snowden, played by our guest here today, Joe Gordon-Levitt, and Shailene Woodley playing the longtime girlfriend of Ed Snowden, Lindsay Mills. Talk about what happens in Hawaii when Ed has come to this decision that the American people should understand what's happening to them, being surveilled.
Or in real life? Because in real life, you know, it's hard for Ed to define the moment. It's a growing phenomenon. It starts in Geneva when he serves, and then it increases through Japan, goes through Maryland, and then he ends up in Hawaii because he wants to go there. He has a case of epilepsy that comes up late in the movie, which is accurate to that time period. It was quite shocking when you're that age, 29, to encounter the limits of your life. Mortality sets in, so you have to make your decisions to a certain degree. His relationship with Shailene has turned, in a sense, she's brought him to a new awareness against his previous conditioning, and when he gets to Hawaii, he sees the worst of it, some of the worst of the offensive cyber warfare particularly. Not just the eavesdropping, we're past the eavesdropping at that point because he's seen plenty of that in Japan and Geneva. But in Hawaii, he sees the capability. It's always pictured to the American public as a defensive capability, but it's not. It's an offensive one. The Chinese are always hacking us per the news. In reality, people like this were hacking them quite efficiently. So in Hawaii, he comes to this, you'll see, I mean, I don't want to spoil the movie, but there comes to be, when he lifted these materials and helped get them out to the public, because it is not done in the realistic way that it was done. It was, we gave it a little juice because it's a drama, and because, frankly, it's probably much more banal than you think, the way he did it.
What about the process of getting the film made? When you first went to the folks in Hollywood to try to talk about this film, and you ended up going with an independent
We really were disappointed. No, we really, you know, the film requires some hardware and some budget, and we had a good cast, and it made sense at the price. They all said no. We don't know why. You never do. But we suspect it did go up to corporate boards because the heads of the studios liked the script for the most part. It went upstairs, you know, 3-4 days go by, you don't hear anything. So the lawyers, as I said, you know, no is the easiest word in the English language, and they passed. We went to Open Road, is a brave young distributor, new in the business, Spotlight last year, Spotlight the movie, and they've done a terrific job. Very, very courageous of them.
So let's go to another clip, and this one features the initial discussions between Glenn Greenwald and an editor at The Guardian about publishing the findings from Snowden's NSA leaks.
Janine, how did the White House conversation go?
I made it quite clear that we were in possession of an authentic FISA court order. They wanted to see it. We refused. Now I just pray that it's actually authentic.
Are you actually questioning that?
Glenn, no one has ever seen a FISA court order. There's no precedent here.
Our source risked his life for that document. It's real. Tell us, did the White House make any specific claims about national security that would prevent you from publishing?
No. I asked them repeatedly, and they had no substantive answer.
Then there you go. What more do you want? You can go out and know that you're safe.
Glenn, I'd like to talk to Alan before we go any further.
When does he land?
In 6 hours. No, absolutely not. We're sitting ducks here, Janine. It's 1 p.m. in New York. If you don't get this out in the next 4 hours, you'll miss the evening news on the East Coast.
But we can post later tonight. I'm sorry, Glenn, but Alan's our editor-in-chief, and I really think that
The government knows that we have these documents now. The CIA could barge through this door any minute and mute one more time. Act like a journalist and stop stringing us along.
Okay, that's a clip from Snowden.
Yeah.
And it also goes to what's happening today, the launching of a campaign to pardon Edward Snowden. Can you talk, Oliver Stone, about what's happening?
About this scene?
The scene, but also about this campaign to get President Obama to pardon Snowden before he leaves.
That's been initiated by the ACLU. and they are running with it. As you said, Amnesty and other organizations are involved. I didn't do this film for those purposes, but certainly I think it would be a great choice for our country to turn back on the road it's on. I think that he would certainly take some prison time. He said so. But he cannot defend himself in court under the Espionage Act. It's just impermissible to bring evidence of any kind about the security state. So he's in a bind, and he would like to come back. He loves his country.
One thing I'd add about the scene we just saw as far as the pardon campaign is an important part, I think, of him being pardoned is the truth that Snowden's disclosures didn't do any harm to anybody or to the country, because that's a claim that gets said a lot, that he's going to harm national security, that certain individuals were uncovered. There's no facts behind that at all. And in fact, what you see in that scene of the journalists checking with the White House about what they're about to leak and directly asking the White House, tell us specifically, how does this harm national security? We'll redact what you want us to redact. The White House couldn't specify anything. So there was really a process, I would say a responsible process to make sure that no harm would be done. And I think that's really an important thing when considering the value of what he did.
This scene is based on Janine Gibson's conversations with me and Kieran. She went through. She had a hard 24 hours.
And Janine Gibson was the editor of The Guardian USA.
She was the American editor of the Online, and she did it because the editor was truly in the air on his way to New York. Glenn Greenwald, who you've interviewed several times, definitely brought the pressure on her, because he said he was going to go independently and publish it himself on his own site, which was, I guess, it didn't happen because she actually, in that scene, you saw her
And of course, they ended up winning. The Guardian won the Pulitzer for his reporting.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go to break, then come back to this discussion, and we'll be joined by Sarah Harrison, who was part of a middle leg of the trip, going with Ed Snowden from Hong Kong to Russia, though he didn't intend to stay there, hoping to make his way to Latin America. Sarah Harrison, an editor with WikiLeaks. We're talking to Oliver Stone, the 3-time award-winning filmmaker, who's this week celebrating his 70th birthday, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is the star of the film. He plays Ed Snowden in the film Snowden. Stay with us.
There's one thing I wanted to hit that we didn't. It was when you
words you're gonna regret. Don't let the fire rush to your head. I've heard the accusation before, and I ain't gonna take any more. Believe me, the sun in your eyes made some of the lies worth believing. I am the eye in the sky, looking at you. I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools. I can cheat you blind, and I don't need to see anymore to know that I can read your mind. I can read your mind. I can read your mind. I can read your mind.
Eye in the Sky by the Alan Parsons Project. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
We're spending the hour talking about the new film that tells the story of NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden. It's called Snowden. Well, speaking on Monday via a video link from Moscow where he is in exile, Edward Snowden made a case for a presidential pardon by Barack Obama. This is Snowden speaking with The Guardian's Ewan McCaskill.
If not for these disclosures, if not for these revelations, we would be worse off. Yes, there are laws on the books that say one thing, but perhaps this is why the pardon power exists, for the exceptions, for the things that may seem unlawful in letters on a page. But when we look at them morally, when we look at them ethically, and when we look at the results, it seems obvious that these were necessary things. These were vital things.
Well, for more, we're joined by three-time Oscar-winning filmmaker Oliver Stone, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who plays Edward Snowden in Stone's new film, Snowden. And I want to bring into the conversation Sarah Harrison, investigative editor of WikiLeaks. In 2013, she accompanied NSA whistleblower Ed Snowden on his flight from Hong Kong to Moscow and spent 4 months with him in Russia at the airport. Sarah, it's great to have you back with us in Democracy Now! I interviewed you when we were both in Germany. But right now, if you can talk about the effects of the release of the documents that Ed did on where you are now, Germany. You can't go back to Britain, afraid what would happen to you if you went back there, just as Ed is in Russia right now. And on the world, why you got involved.
Well, having worked with quite a number of sources before from my work with WikiLeaks, this was obviously a large issue for me. When Edward Snowden reached out to us asking for assistance when he was in Hong Kong, having understood that he was now in an obviously very complex legal and political situation and needed some people to assist with technical and operational security expertise, he reached out to us as an organization, and I went over there as the person on the ground in Hong Kong to help him, not only for him himself, because he'd clearly done something so brave and deserved the protection, I felt, but also for the larger objective to try and show that despite Obama's war on whistleblowers, that actually there was another option. At the time, the Obama administration was intent upon putting alleged source Chelsea Manning into prison for decades. She is now in prison for 35 years, and we really wanted to try and show the world that there are people that will stand up, there are people that will help. The Guardian, for example, did not give any additional help to Edward Snowden as a source, as a person there, and we wanted to show there are publishers that will help in these scenarios. With regards to the effects of the documents and revelations that Edward Snowden gave, I think that it has become obvious to so many people in the world that this is, at the very least, a public debate that needed to happen. In Germany, it sparked an inquiry into not only the NSA surveillance on this soil, but also with the collaboration with the intelligence services here. And there have been some amazing revelations that have come out through the documents and this inquiry about how strong that cooperation is, with essentially the intel services here being more beholden to the United States than they are to their own government. And we've seen similar sorts of revelations and beginnings of change around the world. A number of corporations are understanding they actually have to give better services with regards to encryption and privacy to their customers and are changing their products accordingly.
And Sarah, what about this argument by some here in the United States that Snowden should have pursued normal whistleblower challenges as somebody or complaints to supervisors within the institutions that he worked in? But you've dealt with many whistleblowers through the years. Your response to that?
I would say that we can actually see through some quite recent examples, Thomas Drake, a previous NSA whistleblower being one, that where these channels are attempted to be used, not only do they fail, but there is combative persecution that comes back in retaliation from the US government. Thomas Drake lost his job. Essentially, his life ended up having to take a very expensive legal case. He was cleared in the end through some very good defense work, but it essentially ruined his life. And the whistleblowing acts that he tried to take were not taken seriously through these proper channels. So they clearly don't work, and particularly in the national security industry, I think there is no hope that Edward Snowden could have taken the right channels. Now, he actually did try, right at the beginning, did try these channels. He is, has been mentioned a number of times in this program, a patriot and a believer of the U.S. systems and justice system, but sadly, as has been proven in the attempts he tried with this, and we've seen RE fair trials for whistleblowers, etc., that justice system isn't always fair, and he was unable to blow the whistle and get this information into the public domain or try any reforms in any other ways other than to go public in the manner in which he did to U.S. media.
Sarah, can you return home to Britain?
Well, I'm sorry that you just said that before. I actually was had a great summer where I was actually able to go home. Actually, in part thanks to David Miranda, a journalist that was working with Glenn Greenwald and The Guardian at the time. When he transited through the UK, he was stopped under the Terrorism Act, where you have no right to silence when you're stopped like this at airports, and he was forced to give up passwords, etc. My legal team was very certain that I would be stopped for my work with WikiLeaks and with Snowden under this Terrorism Act, despite being a journalist, and they knew my ethics. I would not answer some questions and would therefore be at risk of charges of terrorism. David Miranda rightfully said that journalists should not be stopped under this act. We have a belief in the UK of freedom of press, and in an attempt to try and protect all journalists, he took a case against this act being used against journalists, and finally won earlier this year at the High Court in the UK. After this win, my legal team took a reassessment of the risks of the situation, and very happily I was able to return home to the UK this summer.
Well, congratulations, and I happily correct what I said. Let's go, though, to the Democratic presidential debate last year, one of the primary debates. Hillary Clinton was asked if she viewed NSA whistleblower Ed Snowden as a hero or a traitor. This excerpt begins with Hillary Clinton and CNN's Anderson Cooper.
He broke the laws of the United States. He could have been a whistleblower. He could have gotten all of the protections of being a whistleblower. He could have raised all the issues that he has raised. And I think there would have been a positive response to that.
Should he do jail time?
In addition, he stole very important information that has unfortunately fallen into a lot of the wrong hands.
Governor O'Malley,
I don't think he should be brought home without facing the music.
So that's Hillary Clinton. Well, in May, former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder said NSA whistleblower Ed Snowden performed a, quote, public service by leaking documents revealing NSA mass surveillance. Holder made the comment during a podcast hosted by David Axelrod.
We can certainly argue about the way in which Snowden did what he did, but I think that he actually performed a public service by raising the debate that we engaged in and by the changes that we made.
So, Sarah Harrison, can you respond to what Hillary Clinton said about getting information into the hands of wrong people? And then, Oliver, I'd like you to respond as well.
Well, also with regard, I'll come to that in just a second, but also just with regards to what she said, I think it's important to note that at the time that Snowden blew the whistle, he was also at a government contractor where there are different rules, and the paths she's presumably talking about weren't actually open to him anyway, albeit if they had been, they clearly didn't work, as we can see from Drake's case. So it is just rhetorical spin that she is using there to try and say he had any other options, and as you can see from the Holder quote and many other quotes from government officials, and just the public response, this is clearly a debate that needed to happen. I think, therefore, we can see in Snowden's situation that, as Snowden was alluding to in the conversation he had with McCaskill, his case is essentially a very good test case in that despite Obama campaigning on protecting more whistleblowers, he has put more in prison. We do have more and more whistleblowers coming forward, post-Snowden as well. Courage is contagious, and yet the laws clearly don't protect them. There are no paths for them that are workable beforehand. The laws don't protect them afterwards, as well as what Oliver was talking about with regards to a fair trial or not for Snowden. He also would not be able to mount a public interest defense. He would not be able to explain, as you are with other sorts of alleged crimes, crimes, the public debate he'd started, and how, from an ethical standpoint, actually what he did was right. So essentially, whether before or after, he has so few options open to him. And I think that this spin that we have from Clinton, and including this harm done, well, there's actually no examples of that. From my work with WikiLeaks, we've had years of these attacks, and still the US government has not come up with any examples of this. So to me, this is all just rhetorical spin, trying to deflect from the real situation that we clearly need whistleblowers as part of our democratic processes. And at the moment, protections for them do not exist at all, and they clearly must be built. And I think that the campaign for pardoning that has begun will hopefully spark this element of the public debate a lot, to see how we can move forward in that area as well as the protections of privacy.
And Oliver Stone, your reaction to Hillary, as well as also Donald Trump, has raised the possibility of execution for Edward Snowden.
Well said by Sarah. When Mrs. Clinton said into the wrong hands, she clearly meant the Russians. And she misses the point that no spy gives his story to the newspapers for free, which is what he did. And we show it very clearly in the Hong Kong hotel room. On top of it, you remember the scene when
turns over all of the records to the journalists and
we made
doesn't
a point
keep any.
In the scene is he kills, he destroys, deletes all the information that he has. He says, I have no more information. I'm traveling with no baggage. Because he knew he had no exit plan. I mean, it was really kind of he wanted just to get this information out, and he risked basically everything. He felt like it was over with his life. He was willing to accept arrest or death, or it was over. And that's what the point of that scene was. He deletes it. It's your responsibility now.
And you mentioned during the break that also that Snowden has quite a bit of support among more libertarian Republicans as well.
When you showed that scene of Joe and Shailene walking in front of the White House, they're talking, his early views were very libertarian about Joe's view, I'm sorry, Ed's views. And the point is that many Republicans are supporting that view. I think 50 of them voted for the Freedom Act, and a lot of them actually are in sympathy with this idea that the NSA has gone way too far.
I wanted to ask you also, you have a next project of Vladimir Putin in the works? I'm
working on it's for next year, though. There's a documentary. He talks very forthrightly. It gives a chance to the American people to actually hear him as opposed to hear the insults that are directed at him.
Sarah, very quickly, Julian Assange still in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and Chelsea Manning is just announced she's ending her hunger strike because she's getting the medications and the support she feels that she has been demanding through the strike. But where they both are today, she's serving, 35 years in prison.
And let us see him. Show him to us.
Say that again, Oliver.
Let us see him. Chelsea.
You want to see her?
Yeah, yes, her. Let us see her. I mean, put her on TV. Let's have an open discussion of it. She's a prisoner. She has rights.
And Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, it is great news that Manning has felt she is able to end her hunger strike and that her demands are starting to be met, her demands for basic human rights. It is sad, and I think an obvious, these are two other obvious examples of this persecution of these truth tellers, these people bringing information into the public domain. Just again referring to the Hillary clip, as Oliver was explaining, Ed very much was working with US journalists to bring this information to the US public. So one can only assume in Hillary's quote, she's talking about the wrong hands being supposedly the American public understanding what their government is up to.
That's a very interesting analysis, Sarah. We're going to have to leave it there, but I want to leave it on this note of the significant development this week, the 70th birthday of Oliver Stone. Oliver, enjoy. Make a wish and blow out your candle.
Congratulations on a long and distinguished career.
What are you most proud of, Oliver?
The body of films. Thank you.
And that does it for our show. 3-time Academy Award-winning filmmaker Oliver Stone, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, thank you for joining us playing Ed Snowden, Sarah Harrison for joining us from Berlin. The new film is called Snowden. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Thanks so much for joining us. Go to our website at democracynow.org.